Thank you very much. Invited guest, permit me to stand on the existing protocol. I believe I have some difficult job to do this morning, and difficult in 2 or 3 respects. The first one is that the talk is said to be very short, should be very short. It's extremely very difficult to have a short talk on innocent, because second one is the my very good sister, Mrs. Chukwuma, has insisted that she doesn't want emotions, but when you talk about somebody that impacted an entire country, it's sometimes very difficult to do that without emotions. So that's why I said my job is a little bit difficult, but I will try. First, I want to say this, that a very unique thing about Chukwuma, innocent, was that he was a solution finder. Okay. Majority of us in this country were not solution finders. We complain and complain and complain about everything. And then once time passes, as is usual with us, we move on. I met Chukwuma about 20 years ago, maybe about that time. I was also a very young man then, in my 30s. He also, I believe, was in his 30s then. And what brought us together actually was a very sad event that occurred in this country. I was the chairman of the Nigerian Medical Association Lagos State then. And a very popular journalist by the name Bayo, I'm sure we all remember him. He was working in Guardian then, had been shot by armed robbers. And that man had been taken to the nearest police station, hospital, and the hospital was alleged to have rejected the patient, and of course the patient died. And the whole country was up in arms against doctors and said, look, doctors are killing, why should they bring somebody to the hospital and the patient is not treated? And being a journalist, the entire, and I was the chairman at that time, all the newspaper houses in the country were hammering the doctors. The CSOs also were hammering the doctors. Some even said that those doctors should be sent to jail with that, all sorts of things. Okay. And then, of course, we were also pushing back, because prior to that time, about a week before that time, some persons had been shot, and that patient had been taken to an hospital, and the doctor had treated the patient, and police came maybe about an hour or so after the end of the surgery and said the person that was treated was an armed robber. So the doctor was arrested, and the equipment with which the surgery was performed were also arrested. Okay. And that circulated within the profession. And so, that has a way of playing in the minds of people when they have. So in the midst of all the noise and the shout and the emotions, I got a call. Okay. And I really didn't know how he got my number. And it was Chukwuma, innocent. And he said to me, Doc, this is my name. This is what I do. He was involved in a lot of police reform, advocacy at that time. And we fixed an appointment. And it was the one single person, okay, who sat down with us, tried to analyze the problem, and identified what the issues were. That the issues, yes, maybe the doctors also had their own fault, but there were more fundamental problems. And then we sat down, we then planned a program, like an advocacy training program for the doctors all over the country and for the police. And so that is why I say innocent, okay, all right, was a solution finder. He was also a good friend of good causes. You just need to mention to him that this problem exists. And even if he's not able to solve it, you can be sure he will bend over backward to help you to solve it. I remember when I was appointed the medical director by President Buhari in 2017, and then, in Ebutemeta, hospital is in a poor of the poor of the poor. Okay? And one of the challenges that we faced were young women, okay, married women, some young, some middle-aged, who were being battered by their husbands. Okay? And then, of course, in Ebutemeta, there was a lot of, forceful sexual intercourse and rape going on at that time. Okay. And I was just completely frustrated. Okay. Because you see women, okay, they will come with swollen eyes, come with broken hands, and nobody was taking actions. And I just felt this was not right. So I approached Innocent. At that time, he was in Ford Foundation. And I think he was actually rounding up in Ford Foundation at that time. And he said to me that, look, well, this is a big problem, but we have to find a solution. Okay. It wasn't, quite frankly, within the funding purview of Ford Foundation, but he found a way for us. And that was how we established what we call the Assurance Sexual and Gender Violence Center in the Federal Medical Center, Ebutimeta. As at the time when I was leaving that hospital as MD, about a year ago, we had treated over 100 women who had either been raped or had been battered by their husband. So Innocent was actually a solution finder, okay? And he supported good causes. The last thing I will say, because I've been asked to, I have almost about 10 points here, but I also want to, obey the rules. Yes, okay, is that he was a completely patriotic man. He never for one day lost, confidence in Nigeria. He was worried like the rest of us, okay? But unlike the rest of us, who just lamented and sat back, okay? Innocent was involved in a lot of good causes, electoral reform, police reform, women rights, and all the rest of them. So he was a completely patriotic and a completely detribalized Nigeria. And lastly, he was a good family man. Okay. Good family man and a man of courage. Okay. In his maybe last week or so or thereabout, it was during the COVID. And then he appeared in my office with the wife, okay? And he said he had this fever, And I actually thought it was COVID. He said he had taken the vaccine and the history was not right. Okay, the first thing is let's run the first set of tests. And those tests came out, okay? And the parameters were not right. And eventually, we found ourselves in the hospital where eventually passed on. But one thing, he wasn't so worried. The opportunities I had in those last times to discuss with him, Innocent was not so worried about himself. It was always about how would Josephine cope and how would the children be. May God continue to grant him eternal rest. Thank you very much.